Okay, welcome to the Voncast show. Hope y'all are doing well today. Today I got Minnie Scarlet on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing really good, Vine. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Dude, thank you for being on. I'm like such an honor. I'm so stoked. So, Minnie Scarlet is an independent performer, actress, writer, co-facilitator for Avril Heels.
Hmm.
And today we'll be talking about a little about her life, along with racial fetishization in adult industry, ethical porn, Avril Heels, and some mental health stuff. So yeah. Um, okay. First question is, how did you get the name Minnie Scarlet?
So it's like okay, this story always kind of like, I guess is very telling of like who I was when I started performing and stuff. But at the time I actually had two snakes as pets and eight tarantulas. So Scarlet was actually picked from my largest tarantula, which is a scarlet bird eater, which is the second largest tarantula like of all time, the biggest spider. And then Minnie was just kind of like, I wanted to do Buttercup, and one of the sites that I was on was like, you need to be more personable, right? Because Buttercup's not a real name. So I was like, okay. And then one of my tarantulas was Minnie. So it's like not a sexy or very funny story. It's like just like it's very telling of like who I was as a teenager, which was kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to be like, yeah, I was such a nerd, but I had like eight tarantulas as pets, and so that was how I got Minnie Scarlet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay, tarantula.
not sexy.
Hey,
So,
hey, it's an origin story behind it.
yeah,
I'm like low-key scared of spiders a little bit.
me too. Weirdly, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Tarantulas for some reason I'm fine with, but yeah,
I
I'm
feel like
yeah.
they're not poisonous. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, I think all spiders are a little venomous. It's just whether they bite us or not. You know what I mean? Or if the venom is like bad for us necessarily. Again, this is like the me being like, well, spiders actually are all venomous, but yeah, totally. I understand the fear completely.
Yeah.
Like they're very
Yeah.
creepy.
There's that movie Arachnophobia I grew up watching. So,
Yeah. Have you
yeah.
seen Eight-Legged Freaks?
No, that
That's a
sounds
good one.
okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
check it out. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. It's been kind of overcast and stuff, but I think spring is starting to happen. So I was like enjoying the sun. I was out there getting like my vitamin D or whatever. It felt good. So I went fishing actually for like 2 hours today.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I have never caught a fish. I've gone fishing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's because I'm like Vietnamese or whatever, but like I can't stop. Like, not that I can't stop, but I always find myself like going back. I guess like when I was younger, I must have did it a little bit. I know like my family did it and stuff, but not as like a fun hobby as much as now. I'm like just really love being like by the water and like by the beach. Like my happy spot is definitely like by a beach.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to catch a fish. Well, okay, technically I've caught a fish in Pokemon, Magikarp.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. I think like manifestation is real, right? So like during the pandemic, I had like Animal Crossing. You ever play like Animal Crossing or like Stardew Valley? So they're like these really cozy little games where you like fish and I don't know, have like animals and just like little nerdy, like cozy things. I think it's, what they call it, cozy games. And now I actually do them and like feel like I live like a very cozy life where I like crochet and stuff. So maybe Pokemon is the first step.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm definitely living a little more like mellow life. I partied a lot in my youth, so now it's more like mellow.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
when did you first start creating adult content? Like what made you get into it?
So kind of a little bit of like necessity and also what I was interested in. So it wasn't just like, oh, someone was like, this is the best way for you to make money and like, da da da, and do it. You know what I mean? But I think I started doing a little bit of like alternative modeling, which was like, like inked kind of stuff like Suicide Girls and stuff like that. So the first site I got started on was a site called God's Girls. So it had other like tattooed girls and they all looked really, cool and like, I don't know. I just really thought that was cool. And I was on Tumblr too. So I was like really big into Tumblr. That was like a huge thing for me. And then, starting to do that, it was like a little bit of money, but I was just starting, college, and I saw people who had like actual, I don't know, who were living lives and paying bills by webcamming. And then I was like, oh, okay, that seems like it could be like lucrative. And I don't want to drop out of school to have to work. Cause at the time, I think I was also working at a restaurant. Like, it was like nothing, it was like $8 an hour with taxes taken out. And it's not like I was working a lot of hours either. So I was like, what can I do? And then webcamming just kind of came to it. And it was just really nice because at the time, like Tumblr, Twitter, all of that, it was like there was community being fostered. So it wasn't just like me and then like nudes and then like people buying the nudes. There were like other girls who were also doing it, other women. And yeah, it just seemed really, I don't know. I was just very like, I liked the community aspect of it. I liked the, me doing it kind of by myself, I wasn't working for somebody. Like, I don't know, it sucks being like, hey, you have to work Mother's Day from 12 or, from opening to closing, and you're gonna only make $8 an hour. And it was just like, this is like so degrading, and it's like, I know people say like, sex work can be degrading, but like, I think anything with like choice, that's gonna be the thing that makes something degrading or not, is like choice. So for me, it was like an option. It added more options.
Right. Okay.
At the time is what my perspective was. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. You said Tumblr. I love Tumblr. Okay.
Yeah, were you on Tumblr? Honestly, the swaggy Filipinos was the era. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. My buddy and I talk about it. Like, she sends me memes. I'm like, oh my God, dude, erase this shit. This is like 2013. So yeah, so I'm assuming this was like 2010 to 2013. This was like or around that time. I think for me, that's when Tumblr was big. Or like 2009 for me, 2009, 2010. A lot of hit the repost button a lot. Just a lot of cool gifts.
Yeah.
Cool mental health stuff.
Yes. Yeah. The gifts were like, I don't know. I remember just like building a following off of there. And if I posted like a new video or a thing, I would have a GIF as like the promo. And then I just hit like it was so active, so it didn't really like, I don't want to say it didn't take much, but I feel like I found my niche at that time where it was like, I smoke weed, I have bongs, I have thigh high socks, you know what I mean? Like I have like some tattoos, and I liked sharing what I was eating, what I was smoking, who I was with, and all of that. And it just kind of like coincided. Like now, I think where I'm at now, I like a little more private. I don't necessarily always want to share all these details. But at the time it was really fun, and it's fun to look back on too. You know what I mean? Like just all the things of like, oh, we thought that was really cool. Like we really like, oh, remember that aesthetic, remember that filter, it was fun to build that and like really feel like you could express, you know what I mean? Like you could make your blog look how you want it to when people clicked on it. Like I think about Twitter and stuff, like, of course you can tweet what you want, but you can't customize all this stuff like you can. And it's, it's a different experience, I think.
Agreed.
So shout out Tumblr. I still have it, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. I know they don't allow adult content like they used to. And
yeah.
So Tumblr is reminiscent a little bit of MySpace because you can customize and stuff. Yeah, Tumblr was active. I liked going Tumblr. I was the emo kid, well, still at heart. So I saw like,
you're emo,
all that stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Like I was rocking the V-necks, I was rocking the girl jeans, I was rocking the Vans.
Oh yeah.
Had the long hair. After this,
I would love to see, honestly. I would love to see everybody's Tumblr so like telling, you know what I mean? I feel like even if someone is not like that anymore, or, it's like kind of, I don't know, it just like shows you something about somebody, like, you know what I mean? If that was a part of their life, or I don't know.
Yeah. So the first time I saw one of your scenes, it was definitely 2013. I don't know how I stumbled upon it, and I was like, wait, this girl looks like she was emo. She was seen, had that vibe, had the
Yeah.
tattoos. I'm like, wow, I can kind of relate. This is pretty cool. I see like, this is pretty awesome. And I think on a more major like company, Mofos, I think.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Mofos was my first like professional, like mainstream. I haven't done a lot. So I'll just, there's a lot of people who are like, you can't call yourself like a porn performer or a porn star or whatever if you haven't shot for and you didn't have an agent, all this stuff. I will just go ahead and say it now. I am not claiming to be a porn star or anything like that. I do have obviously experience in the industry and like my friends. Also, I have friends in the industry and stuff, but there is like this, I don't want to say a divide necessarily. There is a divide, but just the labeling of stuff is different. But that was my first like professional mainstream kind of thing. It was still a solo shoot, but really mainstream companies because I had like my hair cut a certain way. You know what I mean? Like I almost had not a mullet, but like it was like asymmetrical, kind of very specific. And I had like tattoos at the time. I think my nipples were pierced and stuff. So some sites didn't necessarily want that. They wanted me to like, be like I was 18, 19, 20 years old. So they wanted me to be like, look like that. Look, I'm Asian. So obviously that plays into that. And there's just a certain vibe that comes with being tattooed, So that was like my first professional scene that got me like a lot of like exposure. But I was doing like a lot of just like random magazine shoots or random Etsy store shoots or random like shooting for different photographers and stuff. So I was very like alternative in that sense. Yeah, like because I did have that like punk look or whatever. So it did kind of like pigeonhole me to, but I do like the things that I got to do though, because I didn't do mainstream stuff. I got to do all kinds of like, just, I don't know, like little side projects, wonky independent stuff. And I still really love, those are always the funnest things to do. That was fun too. But yeah, that was like my first big like thing. I was like for she'safreak.com or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because exactly. That's why I was kind of like attracted to it. Is like, oh, she's like an Asian emo kid, like scene person. And I'm like, I don't see that a lot in adult industry. And she was wearing like a schoolgirl's outfit, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool. Like,
See, I knew you guys were out there. I knew it. You know what I mean? I was like, look, you guys are telling me that people don't want this. I know that there is, and it was like Tumblr and things like that. I was like, okay, so I'm not getting like this attention, but I am getting like some sort of like resonates with somebody. You know what I mean? So appreciate that. Love that.
yeah, it's so crazy. That was like 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
I have like, yeah, it's embarrassing. I have like the video and like my old laptop, but my old laptop, like I don't have the power cords for it anymore. It's from like 2011. So like I have a bunch of cool
Yeah.
stuff in there. But okay, going back to God's Girls, I remember that was big. God's Girls and Burning Angels.
Yeah.
I remember Skin
Yeah.
Diamond. She was hella tatted and looked cool.
Yes. 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 Yes.
That was like the wave, man. I was like, that's so cool,
Yeah, and she was on God's Girls too. And then she like ended up being huge porn star for a while. I mean, I don't know if she's still shooting. I don't think she
I
doesn't
don't think
shoot.
she does.
Yeah. But
Okay.
gorgeous.
Yeah, very awesome. How were your parents cool with like you getting tatted? Was that like a big thing for them?
It's complicated because, well, it's funny because my parents, they actually, funnily enough, they didn't really care too much about the tattoos. To be frank though, there was like a time we weren't really super like close just in general, even when nothing was wrong. We didn't talk to each other in the same depth that maybe other people had relationships with their parents. So like I didn't talk to them about the shirt I was wearing, let alone, more stuff. So it wasn't necessarily me keeping anything or like a weird sneaky thing. It just was one of those things where we weren't already close. But I do remember when I was probably 15, I pierced my own lip and my parents grounded me until I took it out. And I was like, I can't take it out because it's going to get infected and all that. Like, I fucking lied. And so my dad was like, fine, you can keep it until it like heals or whatever and then, so I know they hated that. They hated it. And just recently I took out all my piercings to say, take care of my grandma and she would like have a fucking cow. But yeah, so just recently I just started taking them out. But the tattoos, weirdly, they never really said anything until like it was more. And then I got, yeah, and then I got like my, obviously they know about it and they never really said anything or had a problem. My dad did say that he wanted to get like something at some point kind of as a joke. And then I think, well, just recently he got his first two tattoos and they're kind of big. So I think like secretly they were like, don't do, like outside they were like, well, if you ask, I'm going to say, no, I don't like it. But I think somewhere inside, I think my parents think that I'm actually like, I think my dad, like we butt heads a lot, but because we're really stubborn. So it's like things I learned from him. You know what I mean? But like he plays music, I play music. There's like a lot of things that he's like, that's my daughter. You know what I mean? So I think like there's certain things like maybe he can't be like, yeah, fuck yeah, tattoos, but like clearly he thinks it's cool, right? So because he went and got some. Now he's like 60 years old, you know what I mean? But like I'm happy that if that's something that he wants to do, like fuck yeah.
Awesome. I remember I got my lip pierced when I turned 18.
Yeah.
And I was in that scene stuff, bro. I had the lip piercing, and then my friend pierced the other side with snake bites later on. I had the septum piercing on for.
Oh yeah, I miss my septum.
I I like piercings on people, but over time for me, I felt like it's a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
Jewelry gets lost, stuff has to get
Mm-hmm.
re-pierced,
Yeah.
walls go missing.
I've had I've had this since I was 14. My industrial, I had that since I was 14 years old. Or maybe it was 16. I don't know. It was younger than 18 though. Um, yeah. What did your parents think about yours? Did they care? I know you're 18, but
Yeah,
sometimes that doesn't matter.
it was different. I think I was the first in the family to embrace this like tattoos and like
Yeah.
piercings. I mean, my uncle has a tattoo, but it's that typical like Chinese character or something,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I was the first one, I think, and they just let it be. They're just like, don't get too much. The tattoos, they were like, you know, and my mom told me one time, she's like, stop, I don't want to see any more tattoos. And in my head, I'm like, oh, so I can get tattoos as long as you don't see them. Okay.
Ooh. Yeah. You're right. Smart. Because she said, I don't want to see any more type. And you're like, as a good son, I won't let you see anymore. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
yeah. So for 10 years, I wore pants to any family event.
Yeah.
I wore pants at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, aging myself, I turned 34. I was 34, and my tattoo homies tattooing me. I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna get my arms tired, get started. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but I don't know what my mom think in my head. And the artist is like, bro, you're like 34, dog. Like, who cares? You don't live with them. And then, one day I decided to show up, my mom's, with shorts on for the first time, sleeves out. She didn't say anything. I'm like,
That's so funny. That's kind of like how it went with me. Like I was like kind of careful and then I was like, let's see how it goes, Do you feel like it was because she like didn't care or do you think like at that point she didn't have the energy to really care? You know what I mean?
I think maybe a little bit of both, or just realizing. Okay, so I think there was a time from when we started getting tattooed to now. There was a time when it was really looked down upon, and then over time, I think it became more acceptable socially.
Isn't that interesting though? That like how it was externally affected how, you know what I mean? Like that means that the way that they reacted with us was based off of how they thought other people might, you know what I mean? Like maybe indirectly and maybe subconsciously, but I do kind of feel like a lot of stuff that like my parents, cared a lot about was just how like it would make, somebody think or whatever.
Right. I think the thing was they thought that, okay, you may not be able to get jobs and stuff, but fortunately, places are more accepting. Again, it
Yeah.
depends what kind of tattoo it is. So now my mom says, just please, if you can, avoid getting your hands and your neck and your face tattooed. I'm like, okay, I can do that for now. I'm cool. I'll get everything else done first and then I'll do that.
Yeah.
Also, too, I think because she realized, okay, he lives on his own, he has a job, he can do what he wants. So there's that like, okay, you kind of earned it kind of thing. So now when when I come over, visit her, oh, that's pretty cool. Or like, oh, when'd you get that? I'm like, oh, interesting. How the table, what's that phrase?
How the tides have changed or something.
The
How the
tides have
tides have
turned. Yeah.
turned. How the
I'm like,
how the turns have tabled.
how the turns have table. I like that. Okay. So
I think it's from something. That might be like a joke from something. So
I like
don't credit me, but
what was it called? Tur-
how
what
the
was it?
tables or how the turns have tabled.
How the turns have tabled. I like that. I'm gonna say that now. Okay. So going back to the adult industry. So you were saying like some of the difference you mentioned was that you can kind of do your own thing, be your own boss when you are doing independent adult content. So like, but when you were shooting or like when you were approached or like shooting for mainstream stuff, there was some like, I don't know, rules or just kind of preferences.
Yeah, like just in general, anytime that you have to like, I don't know, be under somebody or like ask kind of not ask permission, but you're waiting to get booked for somebody else's vision, for the most part, unless you have like a showcase or you're friends with somebody like, or you're already a big ass star, you know what I mean? But it's still not every single job. You're not going to have something that was made for you based off of what you want, right? When you hire somebody, like if I was writing something and like just, I don't know, writing a skit or something and there were characters on there, I already have a vision for what I want and I'm going to hire somebody to like do that and do it in their style. But like, I have the finished product is something that I want. So that's what you're doing when you're being hired by other people. And I didn't mind that, but it just wasn't like, I don't know. It just didn't really appeal to me because of like the combination of stuff I was already doing. If I was already just mostly shooting, but struggling with my own stuff, like maybe then I would have been like, let me dedicate my whole life to doing this. Because even like I saw friends who had agents that like would vilify them for like going to school full time, because then if there was like a cancellation on set and they get called and like, hey, we need a girl, da 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 da, but that girl has class. You know what I mean? You can't really like call her because she's busy. She has stuff to do. But the girls who are like, oh, I'm in this full time, they're available. So then it makes sense to get an agent to keep your nails done all the time, just in case you have a last cancellation, stay tested all the time, which testing is not cheap. You know what I mean? There's different protocols and stuff like that. And at the time I wasn't even really shooting with other people. It was like solo stuff, some camming, some fetish stuff and just like random photo shoots. Like I was getting booked to do like, I don't know, like I said, random, like if someone wanted, like they were making a calendar with hot girls, they needed girls or something, or they were doing like, they need someone to model their new clothing line for Etsy or a streetwear brand or like things like that. So it wasn't like there wasn't anything happening. It was actually really fun because of how different it was. Cause I get really kind of bored doing like the same thing. And yeah, I just get like kind of I don't know. I get kind of like irritated when people try and tell me too much of what to do, especially when I'm just like, if I wasn't making enough money to justify all of those demands, I'm sure I would have just gotten so bitter and like, how dare you even talk about my body like this? Don't tell me how to dye my hair, cause at the time, again, I was like rocking like asymmetrical haircuts, red hair, I had like piercings and stuff and I didn't want to take them out. I also was very like, didn't want to look like a little kid, and so I liked wearing red lipstick. I liked having, just I liked like I kept my bush all the time. I didn't want someone to tell me to shave it. Like these were things that just like I needed. And like I said, sex work kind of to me in the first place represented more options. So that didn't really make sense to me on top of the fact that I was doing other work too. So some mini trivia, some jobs that I've worked. while I was shooting, I was a literal teacher in a synagogue for 3 years. You know, I was a nanny. I worked as like a photo technician and assistant at like for a photo booth company for just private events in LA and stuff like that. So I worked in production. So there were other things I was doing, and I didn't necessarily want those things to be taken away from me because I wasn't making the majority of my money wasn't from, doing stuff like that. So I think for me, I just was like, I like to keep these options. If I get an agent, if I was going to get an agent, it wasn't going to be a porn agent. It was going to be like something else. But that was also hard because it was hard for me to find someone who understood what I wanted to do with my career too. Cause like I said, I wasn't like, I'm not ready to die for this. No, you know, I wasn't one of those actors who was like, I'm ready to die for this. I'm not, um, you know, I was like, I like to have my artistic integrity. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to do this, but I also like, you know, I don't know. Yeah. So I never like got an agent and did the full-time thing. And like I said, I had friends who were doing that and they had different things to offer as far as like their time and, what they wanted with their career too. Cause I didn't really want to like be too like where I could get accidentally like fired from my job, my teaching job or something. Because like I worked with kids and stuff. So I didn't, you know, want that. I'm still kind of like surprised that nothing ever has like happened, at least that I know of. But like, yeah, so.
Good. Hope it stays. I hope it stays that.
Me too. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
No, I like it. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a lot of clarity that makes sense. Some jobs I worked was Gap, US Polo, Chipotle,
oh
Panda
yeah.
Express.
Which one was your favorite and which one did you hate the most and why?
Okay.
I worked at Black Angus, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was like before. And I was like, I don't want to ever do that. People are so mean and like, especially hungry people, you know, they're so mean. And then they just yell at people who have no fucking power or authority to do anything. So yeah, shout out to service workers.
You know, I agree. The food work was a lot more stressful for me.
Yeah.
I can't handle being like working the line and like making burritos and
So Chipotle was the worst.
You know, that wasn't so bad because they found a thing for me at the time. It's in 2008 at the Chipotle I was at. I was one of the few people that like spoke fluent English.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, this guy's good people. Let's have him on the floor. Let's have him like clean, take out the trash and talk to customers because I would get so much anxiety like cream burritos and Panda Express. I'd say that was, you know, I was rolling a lot when I was in that job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was just kind of tough to like maintain.
So you were actually having a good time regardless.
Not at work, but just
just in general. I thought
that. I mean, you know what? No, I was rolling not a Chipotle, but I didn't have to deal with a lot of. I was hella like this out, dog.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny as fuck.
No, but I think what it was is it was just tough because in Pan Express, all I could do was make plates and stuff. And it was just really tough. I don't know, anxiety in general. Again, dealing with people who are hungry and at the same time, but the coworkers were nice. They were really cool. They were super chill at the end of the shift. They don't do this anymore, but we could take home food back in the day. They don't do that.
Oh, that's great. That's lovely.
I still remember, okay, like sidetracking. It was 2010. It was the last EDC in LA. I went. And it was the first like EDM event. It was like 2 days in a row, which is like unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought I had work on Sunday. I thought like it was later in the day, but it was like 9 a.m. So I can't work hella Friday.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
That happens, you know what I mean? Especially you're raving with Asians. You definitely have Vietnamese friends. Yeah.
I got Vietnamese friends, bro. Yeah. Yeah. Good times. But, okay. So, yeah. Don't try, man.
Try,
man, live that life, bro. This was cool in the past. It's cool, but
But like I love like youth for that reason though, because like I don't have the energy to really like pull stuff like that off anymore. But like I definitely know what you mean by like, all right, you're just like living life fully, you know what I mean? And then you're like, fuck, I have a responsibility. And then like just to pull yourself because you're like a responsible human being and you do it, but then you have all these memories of just like, damn, like remember that. Cause like I'm not doing it again, but it was fun to say you did.
thank you. This was in my 20s. I felt like I could bounce back a lot more. Oh my god,
Yeah.
another funny moment. I think I was yayed out and drinking like Jägermeister the night before. I went to Chipotle on my
Not
skateboard.
Jägermeister.
I went to Chipotle on the way to work. I fell on my skateboard, but I was like still kind of low key drunk, and I didn't feel it. And I went to Chipotle. I threw up
Oh my
in the
God.
bathroom because I was like fucked up. And they told me to go home. I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, you look sick. Go home. I'm like,
You're like, I am. Thank you.
sorry, yeah. You still got some beer or what, homie? I'm gonna get fucked up right now. So, yeah, fun times. I'm just good times.
Yeah.
Just thank you for helping me relive this YOLO moment, man. It was fun.
It's fun. Honestly, I think it's really funny to look back at times like that because like I think a lot of people will have shame about certain things, like, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I feel like, you know, if you're happy with where you are right now, it's gonna always be like, I don't know, like how funny that happened, but everything turned out okay. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't do that anymore, but like, remember when, I don't know. It's always fun to kind of just look back and, you know?
Yeah, and something you just said right now, which is cool. Like everything ends up turning out okay. Like I mean, at the time it was hell. Like oh my god, like I gotta get up, I gotta do all this. I'm fucked up, and like I felt a little lost at that. That was like a period of like reflecting and finding myself. But looking back, it's like, hey, I needed that. It was fun. Got it over with. I don't touch nothing anymore, but it's a cool memory. It's something to say, like, hey, remember this, like this and that. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, shame is so awful. You know what I mean? Because of it adds another layer of it because you said you were going through something, right? So imagine if you created a secondary issue because now, even though you're not going through that, you had some sort of complex that you did that. That becomes its own like issue that you now are like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's easier to say than do, but yeah, shame just creates so much like unnecessary stuff. Like, of course, always think back and be critical and, like hold yourself to standards, but, uh, excessive shame and excessive punishment and like bad feelings is like for what, if it's not going to amount to anything.
Right.
You got to forgive yourself too. Like, what's life? Like literally, what is the point of life? We're supposed to be like on the beach eating fruit somewhere, and instead we're like having to like fucking like social security and like 401k.
The thing you said about like, okay, shame too. It's something I'm learning with, just dealing with, just because I'm a recovering addict. Obviously, told you I used to party, used to do all that stuff. And a lot of it was just like, there was that self-compassion that wasn't there. I think a lot of it, the reason why a lot of the times I kept relapsing was because I felt this internal shame and guilt. And I think, like you said, it's good to be critical and like hold yourself accountable. But there's this line where, if you keep beating yourself up over something, it's not going to go well. It's actually going to have the opposite results of what you want.
Yeah, especially if you're considering specifically addicts, like I've definitely had my own struggles. And there's a good phrase. I never was like alcoholic, but there's a phrase I like that's like, it's not a drinking problem, it's a thinking problem. Where like, obviously, yes, there is a physical dependence that comes out of it, but more often than not, when you look at addicts and people who struggle with that, it's not a physical dependence that is pulling them in. Like the physical things obviously don't help, but most of the time it's like a void in some other way. And so if you take that, a struggling person, you add a bunch of shame plus a society that kind of like, once you're labeled an addict, a junkie, an alcoholic, like all these things, people are like, you're not a person with alcoholism, a person with you're an alcoholic, a junkie, an addict, so you're already like, people just dehumanize you. So that coupled with shame, and you're already struggling and for, something to push you into that, like, that's not a good equation. You know what I mean? Cause you already are probably not like but like a person is probably already lacking the coping skills, you know what I mean? To like make that choice of like, okay, I don't feel good right now. Because I know what it feels like when I'm having those struggles versus when I have good coping mechanisms. And I'm like, the difference is night and day. And if you haven't seen how bad it really gets, of course it logically doesn't make sense, because when I have the skills to make it that logical choice, I never choose the bad thing. You know what I mean? But it's usually like when things are a little bit like, so adding shame to all of that, which is like, religion really primes a lot of us for shame. Like, I was raised Catholic, and, obviously being like Asian sometimes, like there's just certain cultural things that maybe like you don't talk about. So, so I appreciate you being really candid about that too, because it's not easy, especially when you're like out here with your face and you're saying like, hey, this thing, even when there's people who do understand, there's going to be people who don't understand. And they always in their mind are like, that's weak minded, that'll never happen to me. Da, 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 da. And like, if you don't understand, I really, really appreciate, and I'm happy you don't understand. You know what I mean? But like for the people who do understand, and it's a lot of us, whether people say it or not. Yeah, it's like shame just kind of drives you right back into that. And I think a huge thing about like recovery and stuff is like, it's good to have certain benchmarks, and some people need that, obviously the encouragement, but it's also like comes with this big feeling of a backslide when something happens, instead of including that. You know what I mean? Like, you can still be sober and, have relapsed a few times. I don't think that makes you a not sober person, or like, because then people, they have that idea of like, now I'm not, it's like good or bad, sober, not sober. Like, there's all these boxes. And to have all those rules on something like that is like sometimes just puts a lot of shame on people, and like I said, you need something to keep you accountable and stuff. Everyone has their own thing. But I think sometimes it really sucks when someone's like, I've been clean for 9 months and one night, like, I fucked it up. Like, yeah, feel bad because you didn't like, you disappointed yourself, but don't feel bad that 9 months doesn't matter. No, there was a time you were doing it all the time. That whole 9 months you didn't do it. So even if you did it one time and then you don't do it again, that's still fucking good, bro. Like, you know what I mean? That's actually still, I see no issue with that. Like, especially if the next day you don't do it, amazing. Like, yet another day that you chose yourself, so I feel like that shame is just like, fuck that, like it just adds this whole other icky layer where it's like, you don't need that.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and same thing with sex work. I hate the shame that comes with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
I had a previous guest, and she does makeup for a lot of the actresses.
Yeah.
She says it's interesting how people shame sex workers, but it's the same people that watch their content. So there's this disconnect,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a disconnect, and it also kind of makes me feel like concerned for people who are like consuming this while thinking all these bad things. Like, everybody's getting abused and everybody is like drugged up and everybody is, non-consensual. And then like you're jerking off to it. It's like, so is that what you think? Like, genuinely, you know what I mean? So obviously that's not everybody's standpoint, but yeah, it's like a weird shame thing. And like, it's not perfect for me because there's still things that come up every now and then. Obviously, like, people think like, because you like read too many books, or like, I don't know, it can be literally anything. And people are like, that doesn't seem like you would, or like, that doesn't seem like blah, blah. I'm like, well, what did you base it off of? Like 5 pictures of me on the internet? Like, I can't live up to whatever weird thing that you came up with, So like, that's just, perception.
Yeah. And I think too is just, it's like, yeah, you do certain content online, but there's also other parts of you. It's not just you in general.
Yeah.
So going back to like when you were working, or just when you were work with like major companies, and just in general, your friends in the adult industry and whatnot, talk to us about racial fetishization in the adult industry. I know you had an article on Vice about that, but
Yeah.
can you talk to us what that is and how it applies to the adult industry?
So I feel like the adult industry, like there are some things that are specific to it, but a lot of stuff is like, it's just a microscope of things that exist outside. So like, how can I explain? Like there's a company called like Third World Media or something, and they like specifically have people that look like us. Okay. Well, women usually, and then there sometimes will be like a white dude or something like that, but it's like specifically third world Asians. It's not Japanese Asians. It's like Filipino, Thai, Vietnamese. You know what I mean? So if these real life perceptions of people like us didn't exist, that fetish could not exist. You know what I mean? So there's some things that are more like playing off of fantasy, but there's like a lot of stuff that is kind of like, that's weird. You know, like that kind of mirrors like real life a little bit. Not all the time, but yeah, I will say like dating as like an Asian woman, can be kind of like, yeah, you just notice like certain people are like, I never dated an Asian girl before, you know? And I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm the one, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like what I'm supposed to do with that information, but that like kind of leaks a lot into, like the scenes that are asked for. I think now there's actually Asian guy performers, like more of them. There's probably like 4 mainstream ones, but that's 400 times more than what was when I was coming up. So I appreciate that. But before it was always like, I don't know, like there had to be a reason that there was an Asian man there. It was never just like, here's a hot Asian guy doing his thing because that's what we're doing. It was never that. It's always you're bringing, you know, some weird vibe to it. So that's partially why I think being independent is so great too, is you just produce your own stuff. Like people want to watch hot people have sex, you know what I mean? And that's fine. You know, if they want to project whatever weird thing, or sometimes it's not weird. Sometimes it's just, you know, sometimes people just like the way Asian girls look. That should be okay too. And you shouldn't have to like go through all this weird stuff to see it. You know what I mean? Cause I've tried to look for stuff I liked before and I was just like, it's a lot of stuff I don't like also coming up, or, you know, I don't know. So it's just, yeah, I think there's like specific things about it, but it's also just kind of mirrors like real life stuff sometimes too. Except with like same as kind of being ostracized for like substance abuse stuff, like porn people definitely get ostracized in their own way. So it's kind of like this fantasy land of like people who might be regular as fuck in real life, like making your coffee, the most regular barista ever who's just normal and you don't think anything weird. He goes on the internet and is like, says some weird dark shit where you're just like, what the fuck? Who is that? You know, but he's just a functioning member of our society. Unfortunately, it's just now he thinks it's okay to tweet these things to sex workers specifically because he saw a specific porn scene or something like that. Yeah. It's very all weird.
Yeah. I remember back then, like there was a lot of the Asian stuff has like very like overtone, like general stereotype, like the titles and everything. When I was younger, I'm like, that's weird. But looking back, it's like, whoa, that was like really weird. You know, it was just like, yeah. I don't, you know, you already know what I'm talking about. And I
Yeah.
don't know who captions the videos on Pornhub and these videos, but some of them are like, you know, I thought this was hot until I saw the caption. This is
Right. And it'll always be some weird thing. Like, I don't know, like there's been times where like it's been like this Asian girl that I know can speak English. You know what I mean? And they're like, don't speak English in the scene. Like, or like have a weird accent or do like make this weird joke. Like I had actually this one scene where this girl, she was really normal, actually very smart and progressive and forward thinking and talked about feminist stuff. So I'm like, cool. She's like progressive, like, you know, cool. And then we're doing the scene and it's like just, it's a fetish scene and it's pretty long. So we're just like saying stuff or whatever. And then at some point, I don't remember, she said something like about going to an opium den or something, which is like a Vietnamese like stereotype, you know, like whatever opium. I was just like, what? And I don't know what the video looks like if I'm like what the fuck or what? But like, it was just so randomly like just thrown in there. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I wasn't going to stop, you know? We weren't like having sex. It was like a spanking scene or something like that. It was like something fetish based, but I remember it just being slipped in there. And then like later just really thinking about it and being like, that's so fucking weird because, you know, like Vietnam, we have like opium fields and stuff like that. And that was partially why, America wanted to like get into our shit. So weird thing to randomly throw in, you know what I mean? Especially when the vibe on set was completely different. I don't know. It's very weird. Yeah. So stuff like that is always weird. You never know what what to
Yeah.
expect.
Speaking of the English thing, there was this one scene I seen of Mia Lee, and she pretended she didn't speak English, and I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of shook me. I guess that's what the whoever wrote this or whatever, that's what they wanted. But it just was kind of like, I don't know, felt kind of off about that.
Yeah. How do you feel about like have you seen like the Asian men performers like coming up now? Like there's like Leo Vice and like there's a few other ones I'm forgetting. But
And yeah, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, that's cool representation.
yeah, it
It
makes
makes
you
me
feel
feel
good though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me feel good. I'm like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
wow, yeah, we can do this too. It's because for the longest time you never saw Asian
Yeah, it
guys.
was nobody. And like people would get so mad all the time. They're like, you hate Asian guys and da 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 da. And like they would say that to me and it would just like, honestly, I hate it so much when people would say that because it was like, I don't know, they would always reference like scenes that were like stolen and are like just on, you know, are being pirated and stuff like that because they are like not paying for the actual thing. They're just like looking and stuff. And I'm like, you can't base it off of stuff that's like just out there because you can't say that I've never worked with an Asian guy or whatever, but like also there weren't like it was Asian talent was not like very common the same way, you know? So it was just like I hated that, to be honest with you. And honestly, like I have a Discord and stuff where I connect to a lot of like just like my community or like the community. And there's a lot of Asian men. And I'm just like, see, like, they do fuck with me. Okay, don't do this. Like, don't
Yeah,
say this.
yeah, no,
Because I just want to say it. Like, I fucking love Asian men. There's nothing, like, I do not worship any other type of man over Asian men. You know what I mean? I'm not like that. I hate that it can read that way, like, to anybody, like, if they project it. But there just wasn't Asian male talent. Like, you know, it wasn't the same. As it is, I feel like now, and even now, there's still just a handful. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out Asian men.
thank you. I'm sure Asian dude listeners will be like, oh yeah, thank you. But yeah, no, I feel it. I think it's really cool that Asians are being more represented, Asian males in like straight porn. I know it's pretty big in like the queer scene, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see that. I've noticed that, like, I don't know. I feel like, remember that movie? I still haven't seen it, man. It's that Crazy Rich Crazy Asians.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like that
Crazy Rich
opened the
Asians.
door for like
It did.
all types of things. I never seen it,
It's
but
good. Yeah. I think, Fresh Off the Boat, like they were, you know, trying to kick down the door a little bit because before Fresh Off the Boat, there was Kim's Convenience, but like, I don't really fuck with it. And I watched it and I was just like, but it wasn't like my thing. Of course I was like, yeah, Asian people, of course. But you know, and then Fresh Off the Boat came out and I felt a little more connected, but it wasn't still exactly what I wanted. But it was like the first time that I think a predominantly like, you know, Asian cast or whatever since like Margaret Cho's show, you know what I mean? And that was like 10 years before it aired. So when that like kind of kicked off, now Ali Wong is like, you know, she's like doing her thing. Like she's literally like Meryl Streep, you know, she's like Vietnamese Meryl Streep. So I'm just like, I love her. I don't know. Did you watch, Beef?
beef. I don't.
It's like a show, Ali Wong and Steven Yeun, like he was on Walking Dead. It's so good. Yeah. There
Okay.
was like a little bit of shit just because they put what's his name? Like David Lee. I don't know. He had some like problematic stuff with he said some like very weird stuff and yeah, but anyway, it sucks that happened, but it's like such a good, I don't know, like it made me feel seen in a sense, because the main girl, she's like Vietnamese. She's also half Chinese, but her mom is Vietnamese. She actually hired like a famous Vietnamese actor. So it's like any Vietnamese people watching, they're like, they see her, but I don't know. Yeah. So shout out Asian people. I don't know. I went on a tangent. Sorry.
No, thank you. I think we got to hear that. I think it's really cool to hear that from somebody, working in adult industry or just in general. I think there were just
Yeah. And thanks for like, giving other people in the industry just like a platform and talking about these things so candidly and like informed. You know what I mean? I really appreciate it.
thank you.
It's
I think
refreshing as well.
thank you. That means a lot. That's like the goal. Like, I definitely want to get more people in the adult industry on, but I don't want to do it in a sense where I've seen other platforms, not saying I'm comparing mine to theirs, but it's very like clickbaity. They ask like
Yeah.
very certain questions. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess that would do good for like clickbait and stuff, but I definitely want to show a different side to people working in the adult industry because people already have a stereotype / misconception of what they are. And I feel like, I don't know, I guess it depends on the show, but like, a lot of stuff I see on the Instagram reels, I'm like, that's kind of cringy. Like the
Yeah.
questions they ask and all that stuff. But I
Yeah.
definitely want
Clout
to
is like one hell of a drug. You know what I mean? So it's another thing about the industry or just any industry where like people are like fighting for clout and money. Like things just always get like weird. You know what I mean? So always appreciate when like you can kind of have like a well-rounded conversation or like respect their view or perspective or whatever.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. And it's just, yeah, I don't like engaging in that stuff. I just like having like actual fun conversations like this, just hearing different parts of the adult industry aside from what it obviously is. Um, okay, so what can ethical porn look like? Because I know there's a lot of misconceptions, oh, it's like forced to do it, this and that. But I've heard this term more often. What ethical porn? What does that look like to you?
Um, I think for a lot of people it will look different, but first things first, like just giving people choices, you know what I mean? Because again, anytime things are like giving you money and there's really young people involved, it can get like kind of like, I don't know, there's just a lot about it that can get kind of, toxic, so a lot of it is like the culture of the industry or the hierarchy or like I said, people fighting over clout and then getting in this bubble. And imagine you're 18 and you're making all these choices that are like lifelong lasting choices, but you're in this bubble. So if everyone's doing it and you do it, it's not that big of a deal. But then you step out of that bubble and that's no longer there. And it's not like you should feel shame about it necessarily, but like you still have to deal with certain repercussions of, physically or mentally or just socially, like whatever it might be. And I don't feel like there's enough support for things like that. Just like another ostracized thing, like, there's not enough support for like addicts. There's not enough support for there's just certain people that get ostracized and aren't able to like ask questions or get guidance or anything. There's always someone trying to prey on people. And I think that's a big one because, like a lot of people are like either have like people that they have to like take care of sort of. So like, then they can't stop. You know what I mean? Like if you're taking care of your partner too, and then they're like, don't have a job and your house is going to like, whatever, your apartment bills and it's like, what are you going to do? And then if that's the main thing you're doing and you're making a bunch of money doing it, so for me, it's always about like options and not kind of like cornering people into having no more options. Like it sucks when someone who makes a name for themselves in porn can't do anything else. You know what I mean? Like when people, I don't know, that's not really answering your question though. That's me trying to be like the world should be better for people. But I think when it's more direct, like not going through companies and like, cause then you're waiting on other people or you're hoping that someone will book you. You're basically kind of like depending on somebody else or something else when the people are right here, like on Tumblr, you know what I mean? The people that liked to see me were connecting with me directly. And because it's hard to like process payments or host content and know all of that stuff, then you have to bring in a third party, which sometimes is great, but sometimes they fuck you over, or sometimes they take too much, or like, so I feel like giving people more options and just having like, if possible, your hands like on your product. Cause I love owning my content. I own like pretty much all my content at this point. There are obviously things that I shot for other people. But most of them are people I trust, so I feel like that's like a big one. But yeah, it's hard because ethical porn is like always going to look different for each person. Ethics, like sometimes there's things people will do that I wouldn't do and vice versa. And that's like different ethics for both, but it's just about choice, and it's also like, I'm very aware of when somebody makes ethics or something their selling point too. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you can say like, oh yeah, we're like the most ethical porn company ever. Or you could just do it. You can just pay people on time and not be weird and not assault the models. You don't have to be like, yeah, we're the best. We're ethical. Everybody look at us, how ethical we are. Yeah. So complicated question. Not sure that I answered it all the way, but it's, it's very like layered. I think it will look different for different people.
No, thank you for your response. That makes sense for how you put it. It depends on like, each person, but yeah, getting paid on time, agreeing, like, not going over boundaries, that stuff. That's ethical, right? And just, like you said, paying people on time. I said that already.
Yeah.
Everything else you said, just it makes sense. Just giving people options and everything. I thought,
yeah, and being
really
considerate of like power dynamics, so like even if someone's saying yes, like consider like who's asking them, what are their options to be saying yes right now or whatever, that's important too, because a lot of people are like 18, 19, 20 years old and they don't feel like they can talk back to their agent or say no, otherwise they'll get no jobs or, like stuff like that. So that always sucks. And that's not to say the actual porn they're making is unethical. You know what I mean? Like, that's why it's like kind of like this layered thing.
Right. That's why I like platforms like OnlyFans and Fansly. I feel like it gives content creators more agency over what they do,
Yeah.
as opposed to like being told like what to do and whatnot.
Yeah. And even then it sucks because sometimes they'll like hijack your money for a little bit or something, you know what I mean? Like, or you know what I mean? You're still kind of at the mercy. So that's better, you know what I mean? In a sense. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's just too many aspects of it all, you know what I mean? To have like one solution. But I do feel like that helps a lot of people kind of like realize, hey, the fans actually want me. That's why the companies are booking me, because the fans, what if I just have stuff and the fans come to me? You know what I mean? And like lessen that middleman a little bit, or at least have an option of who that middleman is.
Yeah. I think I saw your stuff on ManyVids. Is it kind of similar? Do you get a payout like right when someone purchases something, or is it kind of like you gotta wait?
I think you can choose different options of like either automatically paying once it gets to a certain point or every 2 weeks or something like that. But yeah, like once someone buys it, then like it goes into like the total or whatever. And then kind of same with OnlyFans. If I remember, I think they do like either a manual or every like however they like 2 weeks or 2 months or yeah.
Right. Okay. So Sons of Anarchy. You were in one of the episodes. I've seen it before. I didn't catch it. I think it was a very small role, but still, I was like, oh shit. When I found out it was you, I'm like, oh shit, dude, that's Minnie Scarlet. How did that come about?
So funny, right? So Twitter actually, I think like, I don't remember if he followed me, but Kurt Sutter, who was like the writer and creator of Sons of Anarchy, he followed me and he would ask me questions every now and then. Cause at the time, like I said, I was like I posted everything. I posted what I was eating. I didn't like post where I was all the time or anything, but I was like very candid with my thoughts. So sometimes he would be like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Or LOL, that's funny or whatever. Um, and then one day he's like, hey, like, do you ever act? Like, do you want to come in for an audition or something? And I was like, what? Like an audition. Um, so I just gave him like my booking info and stuff like that. And then, the like, casting person emails me with some sides and it's like, hey, if you're interested, we're having like the auditions for, this role. My light just said, we're having, and the role was Asian hooker, which I was like, okay, I'll take it, I'll do it. But I show up, there's other Asian girls tattooed, kind of look like me, you know what I mean? Just like the same, like, whatever. And I read for it. And then, yeah, I ended up getting it. And it was just really cool because I watched Sons of Anarchy. I think I like fell off like maybe one season, but I just like caught up immediately and like felt like I had like, I don't know, some like secrets or something because some of the slides were like, for the actual show. And yeah, so it was really fun. It was really, really cool experience. But yeah, like Twitter, it's not the same anymore. But yeah, there was just so much random stuff happening and just like there was a benefit to being more engaged and giving more of myself because I did get like I felt like I was also like interacting and just random stuff like that was happening. But yeah, I mean, I had to go and audition and everything, and that in itself was very cool to me because it was think like at the clubhouse, like so I like drove up and I was like, oh my god, like I know I've seen this on TV, so that was really fun.
That's awesome. I mean, I really do agree. Twitter or X, I call it Twitter still. It's not
Yeah,
like
I never say X.
I think of X, I think of Molly. But
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right.
Twitter definitely was a lot different back then, and that's awesome. You got that opportunity. When I saw like I didn't see the full. I've seen all the episodes for the most part, but looking back now, it's like, oh, I remember this episode. That's pretty awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it was super fun. I got to actually have a scene with like Jax and Chibs, and I had like a few lines. So I was really juiced. Like I was like, ooh, I'm a featured extra. Like, you know what I mean? I got some lines and everything. And I went to the premiere and yeah, it was really fun. Really fun experience.
Awesome. Okay, so earlier we are talking about mental health. I like asking this question now to a lot of the guests. Um, you know, we do our best. Sometimes we just have bad days. How do you
Mm-hmm.
cope with bad days for the most part?
Um, hmm. I cope in a lot of different ways, but usually I try to always have like some sort of like art integrated. So I try and like let go of making it look perfect or pretty or making it like it's about the process for me, not necessarily like the end product. So that's really important. It also helps me feel like I can let go of things and like, it's okay if I can't control everything. And I don't know what it's going to look like, whatever helps me do that. I play guitar. I write, I talk to my friends. I have a therapist. And sometimes I just like shut down, honestly. Sometimes I just dissociate and I just like watch something. And, I just have to like be okay with that. And then like I'll deal with it after or something. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think like art is a huge, 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 huge one for me that like I don't notice. Cause if I'm not doing it, then I feel like all weird. You know what I mean? Like, right. If I'm not doing it regularly, cause I guess it just like helps me process stuff.
No, that's awesome. Art is definitely therapeutic. A lot of these activities are therapeutic. I make music and it's also pretty therapeutic. I should do it more
Yeah. Do
often.
you like make beats or do you play music or
I
both?
rap.
Oh, you rap? Cool. I gotta hear a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah, my rap name is Vaughn Sheba because my name is Vaughn and I like Sheba the dogs. Um, Remember the Doge meme? That shit's my favorite.
Yeah, I
You know
do remember.
that dog's still alive.
It's like the Doge.
Still alive. It's like a little older, but
Wow.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. And yeah, making music's fun. I should do it more often. I do it, but like I notice again when I was using drugs and all this stuff, I was anxious. I just couldn't label that. So now when I'm feeling something, I tell myself, okay, you're anxious, you're bored. You don't need to like necessarily buy a bunch of stuff or eat a bunch of stuff. Go for a walk. Like before this podcast, I went for like a walk for the first time in a long time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, and it's nice out, sunny. And
Yeah.
I'm learning like, okay, these feelings tend to go away. Just anxious, just everyday stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No, I definitely feel that. And I think it's like trying to appreciate the calmness too. You know what I mean? Like try and reframe it into like, cause I'll like feel like boredom or like, oh, like I have to change how I'm feeling somehow or something. And like, I don't know. Yeah. Like it's been really hard. That's probably the thing that I have the most trouble with is like reframing it into like appreciating that it's calm, and like, feelings just like kind of flow through me. So like, yes, I'm experiencing it right now. It's not forever, even though it might feel like it's going to be forever. And I went like I said, I went fishing earlier. So that was something that like, now that it's nicer, I would like to, keep doing that. But yeah, it's kind of gross. Also fishing is kind of nasty.
I like what you said. Just reframing calmness is a good thing. Low
Mhm.
key, I miss the chaos. I think that's what it is. I miss it, man.
I get that.
Uh,
And it feels familiar, right? It feels
exactly.
familiar.
It's familiar, even
Yeah.
though it's not good, but even though I don't act out on it, like I just fantasize too much about, oh man, the drugs, that was fun, or just like, and then I transfer to like stuff that, may not be like as destructive, but in the long run, it can be.
Hmm.
Sometimes I miss that like living on the edge and feeling alive when I gotta tell myself, dude, after a long day's work, it's okay to just watch YouTube or Netflix and like eat ice cream. That's totally
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And every day doesn't have to be this like, like the patience thing. It's like your life is going to be calm. Sometimes it's going to be up, sometimes it's down, but like every day, like shouldn't be, you know, like you don't need to have like the best fucking time every single day searching, chasing like something, and that's how it can feel is like chasing something because yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Um, but yeah, and also relating to like the chaos just being familiar, so if that's your familiar, then like good is gonna feel like kind of awkward at first, and
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agreed 100%. It's what I'm used to. I used to take a lot of drugs back in the day and just, I was so used to that, like always feeling good. And then you're down, you take more. And now just like learning after 14 years, it's like, okay, I'm like 17 months clean. I'm still learning. Like, okay, totally
congrats.
okay. Thank you. So now it's just, I'm learning just to name my feelings. I'm angry, I'm bored, I'm whatever. So I don't have to like seek external validation to other means. I mean, it's cool once in a while, but like sometimes I'll be like, or order a pizza. You like pineapple on your pizza?
I do. I don't always like, but love that. Look, I have an ice cream cone. It's not, but, and then I have a pho on here as well.
Oh shit, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
For real, that's awesome. No pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah. It says, yeah, it says on right here, it says dakbit, which is like, dakbit is like the special, the house special, the deluxe,
Yeah,
everything. Yeah. And
yeah,
I was a little, I was a little smiz or whatever, and I was like, it sounds like that bitch. Doesn't that bitch sound like that bitch? And I was like,
yeah,
put it on me.
yeah. And yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you could be like, damn, that's kind of fucked up, bro. Like you were just like fucked up when you tattooed. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where like it could be something like, oh man, but also like I'm okay now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, so it's something I think is actually super funny. Like,
yeah, that's awesome. No, tattoos have good stories, even though they don't have necessarily the best meaning or any meaning. Um, okay, so yeah, so I find myself sometimes like I get anxious. I order like a pizza. I'm eating this pizza. I'm like, I'm not even hungry, but I'm eating it. And I realize, oh, I'm probably
mhm.
anxious or stressed out. I'm not necessarily hungry, but I think I'm doing it to like drown out that anxiety. And typically
Yeah.
I fall asleep after. That's like what I would do.
Yeah. It gives you also like dopamine, I think. My therapist actually told me that. She was like, sometimes when you, in your gut, like your gut is connected to your brain, you know what I mean? And like it's connected to anxiety, like your gut health. It's like directly connected to your like, I don't know, your mental health. So sometimes when you're doing that, it's very similar actually to what you're doing when you take drugs, like mentally. Obviously, pizza is much better for you than say cocaine, but, um, but it's that thing of like, you don't really need it. You know, you're not hungry, but it's going to do something for you in that moment to kind of like fill that little void when really like it's okay to just be calm, And something that I also heard once was like, addicts aren't necessarily like, yeah, they're trying to get high, but like they're more obsessed with just changing how they feel in that moment, which is why there's never enough. Because when you're in that moment and you want it to change, that's you doing something else to change that. And then you're there. And then obviously that void isn't filled. So you're always like chasing this dragon. You're always like chasing a feeling. That's why I think like it's a thinking problem, not a drinking problem, because it's that feeling. It's not like, oh yeah, if I drink one more, it's going to like do it. And I'm going to be like, yep, that's good for me. Thank you. Like that's not how that works. So, yeah. And I appreciate you being candid with like your journey with that too. It's not easy, and it's like great. Like I'm really like congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I never was this candid up until I got clean and started talking about it, just because, I mean, everybody knew, well, people I knew, I didn't make memes about drugs all the time. They knew like I like getting high, but they never really saw like I hid that pain. So now it's like, all right, let me talk about it, you know? And it's therapeutic for me too. I think it helps me reinforce why I do it, because like, I don't know. Some days back in the day, I'm like, oh, I can get high. But now it's like there's this low key pressure. It's like, yo, I just told everybody I'm not doing drugs anymore. So
Yeah.
there's this thing where it's like, I'm not gonna let people down if I relapse, but I think it's like putting it out there makes me more accountable in a sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It does.
Okay, another cool thing I found out about you when I started following you and checking out your page. Am I pronouncing it right? Avril Heels?
Yeah. Avril Heels.
Okay. Okay. Talk to us what that's about and what it is.
So Avril Heels. All right. So it's kind of a sad story, but I had a friend for almost 10 years, who named Exene, who, passed away from suicide. But she was also a sex worker, and we also worked at a different company together, not sex work, like I said, we were friends for a long time. So, it wasn't just sex work we connected on, but, after losing Exene, to suicide, there was a lot of complicated stuff happening, but the company we worked at was supposed to be for sexual assault survivors, and, was supposed to be like, I don't know, we were just trying to make a difference in some way, but the company was really, really awful. And so, Exene ended up killing themselves. And then we wanted to sorry, this is like, I always like just hit, like, I don't hate talking about it. I'm totally open about it, but that like I dissociate sometimes when I talk about it. I don't mind talking about it, but yeah, just bear with me. Cause this only happened about a year and a half ago, and just, yeah, so much. But we made a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit that we host, creative healing spaces, basically like art healing, creative writing, and we have like weekly groups. And that was always something that we wanted to do with Exene. So Avril is, a name that is pulled also because they were a sex worker. So it has a piece of that name and a piece of their other name too. Yeah. So we just started this, and it's been really, really great. We have weekly art healing groups, and workshops where we teach people, like, I don't know, we've had like video editing workshops. We've had songwriting workshops. We've had crochet workshops, and it's all completely free. We take donations. And then we just provide these free spaces that are usually virtual, but we've had like comedy shows and in-person fundraisers as well in like Los Angeles and New York. And we want to do something in the Bay soon. But yeah, it's basically, we welcome everybody, but we but we center like, people of color, sex workers, queer people, you know, people that we kind of understand. And honestly is we kind of think about like, what do we need as people and like what would have kind of benefited Exene as well. And usually like, to me, the opposite of like depression, addiction, a lot of that stuff is not just being happy. It's community, you know what I mean? And support. Cause most of the times when I'm feeling the worst, it's because I don't have a support system. Because even when I'm going through a hard time, I feel like if you have a support system that validates you, supports you, and you feel like you have people to talk to and who understand you and see you, you can like go through so much stuff and like feel like you can go through it. You know what I mean? Like it's just another, like not, it's just another thing, but it seems possible. The times where people are kind of like their light is the dimmest is usually like they don't have like anybody at home they can talk to. They're not connecting with friends. They don't have time for their friends. They don't have like their friends invalidate them or something. You know what I mean? So that support goes a really long way. And that's something that's really needed that we kind of like created with ultimately no money and so many, like we just had our signups, just max out in like 20 hours that we had the signups open. So we know people are really like fucking with it. You know what I mean? And the thing is like in this type of work, also like trauma work, a huge indicator of like how we're doing is like retention. So are people coming back? Do people feel connected? And people just are coming back. They're telling their friends, all this stuff. So, yeah, we just really wanted to bring access to this kind of stuff too. Cause there's a lot of people who have never like tried watercolor, who have never crocheted or any of that. It was never in their face. Like I went to like a public art school. So, it was in the Bay Area. So every day we painted, whether we were feeling good, bad, whatever. It was just part of school. So I never thought about how that really affected me until I didn't have that every day. And I was like, oh, I feel really bad. And I just like, it's worse than it normally is, you know? And it was because I wasn't doing art. And like, as much as even if it didn't give me money or give me clarity or like any of that, it was still like me figuring out stuff in my head in some way, processing something. So just like giving people that option. Cause even like if you can't commit to a weekly group, which they're only for 3 months, you know what I mean? So even if you just try it, there's workshops that are just one-off workshops that sometimes will provide this stuff for you. Like if we have a crochet workshop, you sign up ahead of time and we send you like a crochet needle and some yarn. And then you just hang out with us for like an hour or two. And then like, maybe you'll keep crocheting and maybe you won't. I don't know, but it was something for you to try. And maybe you'll want to hang out with us for more. Maybe you won't, you know, but just to have those spaces is so important. And we know we can't, you know, save everybody or connect with everybody, but hopefully there's another organization or another group somewhere, another thing. And sometimes that community comes in like shows. Like I was a punk, so I went to punk shows every weekend that I could get out, you know. That was like, it was about the band, but it was also like, it wasn't a concert. It was a small show. So it would be our friends' band. It would be all our friends that we knew. We would see each other every weekend. That was a community. So same, like, I'm sure there's like, you found community raving, you know, like obviously we're like, haha, drugs, but also you were with people, you know what I mean? You were like with people expressing yourselves. And of course it's like, yeah, party, but also like, there was a lot that goes into that of like feeling like community and also like, oh, this song makes me feel these feelings that I usually don't feel safe feeling anywhere else. And even if you're not understanding it fully, it's a somatic, like, I don't know, it's an expression. And then you feel different later to maybe then figure it out in your head. Or maybe if you don't figure it out in your head, at least it's not fucking up your insides the same way anymore, you know? So that was so long-winded, but yeah. So Avril Heals is basically a nonprofit that I started with a friend, and I'm obviously very passionate about it. But yeah, it came from, you know, someone I love very, very much, who's not here anymore. And we just want to like, you know, hopefully reach some other people who might be struggling too and say like, hey, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know what I mean? I'm not going to guilt you into anything. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but here's another option. If you do like, if what you're craving is connection, here's a free, hopefully accessible way for you to just connect with some people, even if you don't turn your camera on and you don't share what you're doing necessarily, but like it's something to look forward to, or it's, so it was something I really needed at a time too. That was so long-winded. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm really glad you went in depth. My condolences. And I think that's great that y'all created this space. I like the community aspect a lot, and just being able to connect and healthy coping mechanisms, crocheting, trying different things and stuff that may not be always accessible. I think I'm really big on community. I really am. I think it's very powerful. Just being there for other people. Back to what you were saying with the rape. Yeah, like partying was cool, but one thing I really liked about Molly or ecstasy was like, I gotta tell my friends, yo, I love you, or like they could tell me some stuff. I mean, like MDMA now is used for therapy, but dude, like I remember, I don't remember, but I do remember like the very heartfelt conversations I'd have with my friends. Man, they'd open up like they never would. We'd have these talks, these long talks, smoking menthols and stuff. Like, oh yeah, I love you, bro. Like up until then, we never said I love you, bro. I love you, bro. Like you, my boy.
Right, and it wasn't fake. You know what I mean? It wasn't fake. Yeah,
I love you,
I
dog.
think.
Yeah. Like,
And ketamine therapy is a thing now, so it's like it obviously there's ways to misuse everything, and there's like, whatever, but like there's also things that are closed off about people that just like need to be sometimes expressed. And I think that's why like there is like MDMA was used in therapy once upon a time, you know what I mean? And ketamine is being used now because it opens up like these like chambers in people's minds that are generally really closed off because of just the way we're socialized, and like there's people like, I don't know, like our parents and stuff like that who probably need therapy, but like for them, I don't think they're going to be able to, like that generation. It's not about going to the beginning and talking about every single thing. Of course, identifying their feelings and things now is really good. But for a lot of that trauma, it's like, if they do physical activity or if they do art or if they do something that works it out, like there's other ways like that are therapeutic that aren't necessarily therapy, you know what I mean? And that's like finding community or finding like, a lot of trauma is like stored in our body. So like dancing, even like a lot of trauma is stored in our like hips and our thighs and stuff. So like that's literally like a thing that there's certain kinds of therapy where they do that. You just are gyrating your hips, and like that's not necessarily talking about something out, but it's literally working it out because the body does remember stuff, even if your mind doesn't, And so, yeah, there's just like a lot of different, we're very like complex creatures, very simple in some sense, but also very complex. So you're going to have to like hit it with some different things. Like, yeah, I'm going to eat good, but I'm also going to make sure I take care of like my social, things so I don't feel closed off. And I'm going to make sure that I am trying to express myself in some way, even if it's like just 20 minutes of guitar or like, I think that that's really, really important. And it's not something we think about because our our stomachs grumble when we're hungry, but like nothing is going to happen if it's like, no one's like, you didn't do art today, So it's hard to remember those things, but it's so important.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much. Okay. I don't know if I have time for one last question. It's about your podcast and like the series you wrote about. Talk to us about those.
Podcast. So my podcast was like the thing that there's an Avril Heels podcast. So you can look that up on iTunes. I think like iHeartRadio, Amazon, like anywhere that there's like Spotify too, I think. So we just wanted to give people, a platform sort of because, so going back to, you were talking about Crazy Rich Asians kind of kicking down the door for Asian people, in Hollywood. So I think in a lot of other industries, things like that need to happen as well, right? So like Fresh Off the Boat was made by Asian people, and that wasn't perfect, but it was like a stepping stone. And then once Ali Wong got a little more whatever, then like A24 made like Beef and then some other stuff and gave, and now it's like I see a bunch of stuff. Like now, like there's a lot of Asian stuff on Netflix and things. But it wasn't just because we were like, not we, like I'm like I'm Ali Wong, but like, you know, it wasn't because like the industry stayed the exact same. It was people made their own production companies and had to do it and kind of put themselves on. So like, it's not like I'm trying to do something like that on a huge scale necessarily, but like for people who don't normally get acknowledged, even though they might be twice as talented, it feels good to have like a place to put stuff. You know what I mean? So like, I think like our podcast is one platform to give people a voice or to talk about stuff that's important. And then we also have a zine, you know, that's kind of, you can get your work published there. You know what I mean? So it's not like a well-known magazine or something like that, but it does feel good to see your work printed and have it be like, you know, appreciated and read and understood. Yeah. So I think like taking yourself serious, you know what I mean? And I think like some of these things, like our writing groups and stuff, people really like take it serious and like they're really like opening up to the prompt and like really trying to like, I don't know, just like it's really inspiring because some days I'm like, that's corny. I don't feel like doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that. But then like, I'm just moved by like other people who are like so unafraid to express their feelings, you know, when to me it's like almost a natural, like, you know, because the way I was raised and stuff, like if I like get too emotional, I'm like, okay, anyway, let me tell a joke. So it's like still entertaining and it's not too heavy. But yeah, so the podcast was something like that. I think it's really important just to like make your own stuff. So like even with my adult work and stuff, I produce my own stuff and I'm saying stuff so much, but, I released a short in collaboration with, Guy Garbage is his name on Twitter. And then Ruckus, who is another adult performer. And we made like this movie kind of like I was watching a lot of Tim Burton, you know, and I was like, I want to do something like that. But like, what am I going to do? Like hit up a big porn company and be like, by the way, hire me an Asian girl for like this weird Tim Burton thing idea I have. Like, no, that's not going to happen. You just have to make it yourself. So we made this film where we're like first we're like two lovers that are just regular and we're like in love. And then something happens, like a car accident happens or something. And then we're in the afterlife and we're two undead people and we're trying to find each other. You know what I mean? So we're like, we find each other and then, you know, we have sex, but,
Spoiler alert.
but yeah, spoiler alert, right? The ending, well, it's most of it, but like that was a scene that like, we just kind of put it together, you know, and like it was, you know, we got the Airbnb, we hired like a camera person and stuff like that. And so it was this thing that we kind of had to produce ourselves, but it looks really good. It looks like a professional scene and I really like it. And I got to do like the makeup and everything and have like all those stylistic choices. And it just feels good to me. Like that doesn't feel degrading or bad to me the way it does when I like do something I don't really want to do in another scene, you know? So I think it's really important to produce our own stuff as like, I don't know, people who aren't the mainstream or who aren't the whatever. And even if you are, like, there's so many big adult stars now and just like people who are producing their own stuff because they realize they have the fan base, you know, and companies want that fan base. And maybe you can get something from companies. I'm not saying they're useless or anything, but it does suck to feel like you have to appease anybody to do what you want. Yeah. So the podcast is one extension of just like me just trying to like produce a bunch of stuff and like just, you know, I don't know, make it so that there is a place for people if they want it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, I remember seeing that on your Discord, the undead thing. It looked pretty legit. I saw the trailer and I saw the pictures. I'm like, whoa, this is like pretty high quality, pretty awesome.
Thank
The story
you.
about it. I'm like, interesting. I'm like,
Yeah.
like that's a very like, I mean, just in general, like that would suck if you're like love somebody and just both die, and just after life thing is pretty cool. Finding each other, that's pretty awesome. That's very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like after I watched a bunch of like Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I want to do something like that. You know, like there's something romantic about like, I'll find you in any, you know, I'll find you in the afterlife. I'll find you like even when I die kind of thing. And I was like, that's like deeply romantic in a weird way.
Mm.
So yeah. So I like doing stuff like that. And I want to keep doing just like weird little shorts and stuff. They're really fun. Yeah. Like with that same producer, and cameraman, I did like a short where it was like a horror movie. So it was like, I got to like fake die too. So there's like a lot of like, and that wasn't a porn, but like, you know what I mean? There's just, I like doing, I don't know, I just get kind of bored sometimes. So I just want to do something.
Awesome. I think that's all the time we have, dude. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That was a really fun convo. Thanks for sticking it out. I know it's
Yeah. No,
good to hear.
thank you. This was super fun. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so I'll post your links on the description and everything. So I think that's about it. Thank you again.